Uh, Hi, good morning. Okay, in the beginning, right, just before I get going, I'm just going to do some background. I'm just going to quickly tell you what the video is going to be about. The video is going to be about the beginning in terms of the Bible, because it just seems like such a big con, and I really like talking about this stuff. The idea that there was a beginning about 6,000 years ago is just, from a scientific point of view, is just so totally preposterous. And it's just such nonsense. And I just want to point it out and like, talk about how ridiculous all the people involved look. But before that, I just want to mention how people generally, they can't deal with the truth. When it comes to, one of the things I also like talking about is cannabis being a cure for cancer. And I saw at my local supermarket, they've got all these more signs now about how to cure breast cancer, and that people need more money to do cancer research and stuff. And we've had the cure for cancer for like 170 years, and people are just like dumbed down. They've been so brainwashed by government propaganda all around the world. Most people don't think there is a cure for cancer. Or they don't care, or something. There's other cures as well. There's orgone energy. Wilhelm Reich discovered orgone energy in like the 1940s or 50s or something. And he started curing people of cancer and all kinds of illnesses, right? Orgone, it's the energy of orgasm, right? But you can create it without an orgasm by using a special sort of like a box made out of different layers of organic and inorganic materials. If you create layers of inorganic and organic materials, it creates orgone energy, and that will cure you of all kinds of diseases. There's loads of old burial, like what they think of as burial sites, but they're sort of like ancient orgone accumulators. That's what they are. There's all around the world. There are these places where there's a little hole in the ground, and it's got layers of organic and inorganic material surrounding it, so that when you go inside these places, you get a big dose of orgone energy, and it cures illnesses. Right. The Bible, in the beginning. Now, the idea that there was a beginning, from a sort of strictly logical perspective, why should there be a beginning? When does time begin? Now, the idea in the Bible that time started 6,000 years ago, just out of nowhere, just suddenly like pop, everything got created in 6 days. It's just such a huge lie. It's one of those huge lies, right? That people just don't know how to respond to it. So they just believe it. Not everyone, of course, but a lot of people believe it. And it's almost like the more of an outlandish lie these things are, the more people will just automatically believe it and not even question it. And actually, if anyone does question it, they hate those people, and think of them as the devil. It's true. Go and try it out yourself. I know what it is to me, because if you look into calendars, if you go onto Wikipedia and put in calendar, or you do a Google search, put calendar and then Wikipedia, there's loads of different calendars. Every few hundred years, somebody starts a new calendar, and they've been doing it forever. One of the oldest ones we have is the Judaic calendar, going back about 5,500, 6,000 years. Then you've got other calendars, but there are calendars that go back a lot further than that. The Mesopotamian calendar, the Babylonian calendar, goes back like hundreds of thousands of years. The Egyptian calendar goes back tens of thousands of years, 30 or 40,000 years or something like that. we've got the main calendar, the Jewish calendar that most people sort of think of in terms of Christianity. We know we've got our Christian calendar, which goes back 2020 years, 2019 years. But we also know that the Jewish calendar supposedly goes back a bit longer, 6,000 years. But what was before then? We've got all these calendars going back before then. For a long time, science has tried to stick with that 6,000 year calendar, as if it tried to sort of connect science and religion together and make them into sort of one organized sort of like consciousness. But of course, we science will tell us that time goes back to the Big Bang, 14.5 billion years. But what happened? I think. Well, what happened before then? Why should it stop there? Why would it stop there? Well, I mean, what was going on before that? What about all the space? It doesn't make sense that there was no space before then. There might not have been anything in that space, but the space would have still been there, surely. How can it not be there? How can it not? This is what I've realized with most people. They are incredibly fucking stupid, right? They have this idea that there was nothing before that. Before the Big Bang, nothing existed. There was no time. There was no space. Now, to me, that is a physical impossibility. That's just childlike stupidity getting the better of you, because you want there to be a beginning so you can start at the beginning and carry on, where there's no obvious beginning. Why would there be? How could there be? It doesn't make sense. Nobody seems to have an answer. And when you don't have an answer, that's probably how things really are, because if how can you? I can't even imagine a beginning. So where these other people get their ideas from that there was a beginning, whether it was 6,000 years ago or, a million years ago, or I've heard other stories, 20 or 100 million years ago. That's how long, or 200 million years people have been on this planet. There's evidence for that. Apparently, there's footprints that have been discovered that are seem to be hundreds of millions of years old. They look exactly like human footprints. As far as I'm concerned, there can be no beginning. The universe gets created. I mean, this goes Hindu mythology talks about this. The Hindus, God just breathes in and out. Their God Krishna breathes in and out, and each time he breathes in and out, there is 6 or 7 million years go by. You have these 4 yugas, and the longest one lasts 4.32 million years. Then you have one that lasts 3.18 million years or something. And then another one a bit shorter than that. So it's probably about 10 million years. I think it's probably 10,800,000 years. I'm not 100% sure. I'm just guessing. But those sort of numbers, they sort of tend to go along. 108, 432. 432 is 4 times 108. Each yuga goes slightly less than the one before, like a quarter, 25% less, or something like that. So yeah, I mean, I look at the Jews. I mean, I don't mean to pick on the Jews, because the Christians are just as stupid, and the Muslims and probably the Buddhists and stuff. They all like to think of there being a beginning, but it just doesn't make sense. How can you have a beginning? What was before the beginning? It's just an arbitrary thing that they've picked to sort of make it look nice and attractive for stupid people who need there to be a beginning. Because looking at the world in terms of there was no beginning, that's confusing for people. They want things to be finite and easy to understand. And when they're not, they can't cope. They don't know how to sort of make sense out of the world. I think that's okay. That's quite acceptable. Yeah, you can't make sense out of the world. That's fine. What's the problem? Just because you imagine some sort of beginning, it doesn't make it so, and it doesn't necessarily make you help you make sense out of the world. It's dishonest. You're just looking for an easy story to make things all kind of make sense in a way, but they still don't really make sense. I mean, you just have to ask, well, where did God come from? If God created it all, where did God come from? Who created God? Where did God come from? And of course, they've got no answer. They just have to say things like, God was always there. I mean, it's preposterous. It's just the same as the Big Bang. Oh, the Big Bang created everything. Well, what was before the Big Bang? The Big Bang created everything. It was nothing before the Big Bang. It just suddenly appeared out of nowhere. It was without a cause. It just happened, and here we all are. It's all a mystery. It's like they all preach mysteries. All the religions, the science. It's all superstition. It's all nonsense. People like to believe it because it's like a narrative. It's like a story. So it's like you can think, oh, in the beginning there was the Big Bang. In the beginning there was the Word, and the Word was God, and the God, was the Word or whatever, I just don't see how there could be a beginning. It just doesn't make sense. It's just nonsense. Oh dear. Yeah, so I think of the Jews as stupid people, but basically, although they've got the highest average IQ amongst all known tribes and peoples, they're supposed to be the most intelligent, but they still can't get past this in the beginning. I mean, I don't know what Hebrew people actually think about this, but I just strongly suspect that they are just mostly stupid. The same with Christians, and the same with Muslims. The idea that there was a beginning, it doesn't make sense, and they all believe it, so they must be stupid. What else is there what other explanation is there? It's oh look, there was a God who started everything at the beginning. It's still a huge mystery, and none of it makes any sense. You can't really build on that. You're just waiting, and that's why they're waiting for is a Messiah to come and tell them what to do. Because you can't make sense out of stuff like that. It doesn't make sense. So they're already starting on the wrong footing. They're already starting with nonsense that doesn't make sense. So that's why they need a Messiah or a Mahdi or, someone to come and tell them what to do, and to sort of pull them out of their ignorance. But their ignorance is self-inflicted. They're sticking with all this program of there was a beginning, when it doesn't make any sense. There's no scientific reason why there should be a beginning, whether it's the Big Bang or whether God come down and started it all off with a few lightning bolts or something, And the other thing about these people, you can't reason with them. And if you talk to, I've tried talking to people about this sort of thing, like sort of Christians and Jehovah's Witnesses and stuff, and it just doesn't faze them at all. They don't like react as though, oh, how did I miss that? They're just sort of like, oh, okay. To them, it's like there was a beginning, and nothing anyone can say can change that. Because it's written in a book, and it's a holy book, so it must be true. Who's it? There's this guy who wrote the Tom Sawyer books. What's his name? Mark Twain. He said, it's easier to deceive people than it is to convince them that they've been deceived. You know, that seems to like ring true for me. You know, you try telling people the truth and they just don't accept it unless the government tells them that it's so, or, you know, a whole bunch of scientists and priests tell them it's true, then they'll believe it. But if a normal person just points out the fact that it can't possibly be true because it doesn't make sense, they just ignore it. They can't deal with that. You know, it's only one person. They would rather stick with 1 million people all lying to them than one person telling the truth. I mean, I see it now. It's like this thing. Also, I'm going back to the cannabis thing. You know, it seems like absolutely certain that cannabis cures cancer. There was information in the British medical journal, The Lancet, when on the first episode when it came out 170 odd years ago. Cannabis cures cancer. It cures all kinds of things like Parkinson's disease. They didn't know what it was called then. They just called it dementia, I think. But it cures dementia. It cures cancer. We've known this for well over 100 years, nearly getting on for 200 years now. And yet people still think we can't cure cancer because the government and the medical establishment keeps pushing all this propaganda that we just need your money because we need to, you know, do more research on cancer. We don't need to do more research. We already know exactly how to cure it. Extracts of medicinal cannabis cures cancer, you know. So I wonder, like, you know, when I'm talking to people about this, why don't my videos go public? I'm not trying to encourage you. I think, you know, you must probably know best. You better know better than me why they don't. You people, you know, I assume you people really know what you're doing. It must be a good thing to get people to die of cancer when it could easily be prevented. You know, there must be some good reason for it, you know. I often think it's probably because there's too many people on the planet. Everybody knows this. There's too many people. You can't get people to keep their fucking penises in their pockets and their vagina, their legs closed, you know, to keep their vagina away from penises. They're all going to do it, you know. I look in the street when I'm walking around the street and I see these women walking around with their babies, and they seem so sure of what they're doing, you know, just having 3 or 4 children. I'm not going to question them. I don't mean to judge them at all, but I look at them and I think, do we really need 3 or 4 more children from, you know, all these people? Is it really necessary? Do we need so many people on the planet so that, you know, people like me, I can't even afford to have a garden to grow my own vegetables because there's no land left. It's all being used up by the medical, the industrial, what's it called? The military industrial complex. Controlling all our food, controlling all our air, our water. So I think they're just wiping themselves out. They're going to create a load of poison and stop themselves getting cancer treatment that was going to work. So they're killing themselves. It's like a kind of suicide, a cheerful, slow kind of suicide. Ah, dear. It's funny. You have to laugh. I mean, what goes? I've tried getting stressed out about it. That doesn't work. I just think it's better to laugh about it. And you know, if they're all going to commit suicide, that just leaves me left behind. You know. In terms of the progress, what I've been doing lately, I'm still doing the cold therapy, still doing my high intensity interval training, jumping off stuff. There's a few other things I want to include. So as I sort of build up my different things to do with the work, I'll start adding them to these videos. This is really it today. I just wanted to talk about the beginning. You know, how these religions are just completely mad. What they say just doesn't make sense. It's a con. It's a trick to get childlike people to buy into these ways of doing things. So they have to give you a big lie right at the beginning, like in the beginning, as if there was a beginning. There is no beginning. It doesn't make any sense. Why would time have a beginning? How do you begin it? I think what's much more likely is that the universe begins, it goes through a long period, and then it ends, and then it starts again. But there's an infinite amount of them. They're infinite. How could it be different? I know you're thinking in terms of like, oh, I can't imagine infinity, so there must necessarily be a beginning. No, you can't imagine infinity because it's difficult. You can imagine infinity if you work at it. It just hurts your brain. I've tried it. I've tried imagining infinity. It gives you a headache, but it's quite possible. It just hurts and it feels uncomfortable. It's not that it's not possible. You're just not trying hard enough. Okay. Thanks, viewers. I'm going to sign off now. Thanks for watching. Share my videos and tell everyone how great I am. Thank you. Yeah, have a good morning, Snowy. Hi, big blazing joints.